Welcome back to another edition of Baseball for Maniacs. We've been doing the division previews. We knocked out the entire American League. So now we start with the National League, my personal favorite for obvious reasons. And I'm just going to jump right into who I think is going to win the National League East. You guys might think it's one thing by the flag, and I'm here to tell you it's not. I think the New York Mets are going to win the National League East. I just think based on their offseason, and the mix of the young talent coming up, that's just going to culminate based off how their year ended last year. And I just think I still would have brought Pete back. I would have brought Edwin Diaz back because when you're Steve Cohen, you should have all the money to do that. To where I didn't like Jorge Polanco replacing Pete Alonso, but they still made a lot of great additions. And let's get into the rotation, which in my opinion is the reason they missed the playoffs last year. They got Freddie Peralta leading the way, won a great trade. They did give up Jet Williams, who I think is going to be a very good big league player. They also gave up Brandon Sprout, who's going to be a mid-starter. But the thing with Jet Williams is he was never going to fit on that team, and they're in win-now mode, to where if you can get a Freddie Peralta and you have the money to extend him, you do that. You make that deal twice on Sunday. Nolan McLean, he's going to win a Cy Young Award or two in his career. He just has that it factor about him to where he came up last year and he dominated. He dominated us to where if they got into a 3-game wildcard series with the Dodgers, I don't think they would have beaten them, but it would have been very close. So that already front lines their rotation. And then the rest of it's kind of a lot of depth to where some guys they can try out. They got Sean Manaea. Now, Sean Manaea sucks, genuinely. I cannot believe we got second half Sean Manaea against us in the playoffs when he changed his arm slot. Guess what? Everyone figured him out. He sucks again, but it's just so fitting that he found his groove against us in the playoffs.
I gotta say, going into that depth, actually, Freddie Peralta was a huge addition. The kid they got also with him, Tobias Myers, he ain't no slouch himself, actually. He looked pretty good in the 50 or so innings that he had from Milwaukee last year.
Yeah, I think the thing about David Stearns is he's going to be beloved in New York. Like he's had a rocky start, and I think it's mainly because he let the homegrown guy go and Pete Alonso. But if they start winning playoff games and like winning series, he's going to be beloved. He's one of the best baseball operations guy in the league. So I think the opinion on him is going to change. And going into the rest of the rotation, Clay Holmes, the converted reliever, had a really good year last year. Now, is he going to falter in the second full year of him as a starter? Could be. But then they got David Peterson, who is really good in the first half, but struggles in the second, which is the trend with the New York Mets because the Mets will always Met. Kodai Senga, I think, is absolutely cooked. Like, I think he's freaking lost. He had that one good year in 23 when the Mets weren't good, so didn't really matter. Jonah Tong is rounding out this rotation. I don't think he's going to start the year in the majors. I think the Mets did a huge disservice to him by bringing him up in the situation that he clearly wasn't ready for. His stuff is there, but I wonder if that's going to break him mentally, to where I would rather just have him start the year off in AAA, work on some things. If they need him, call him up, or just use him at the trade deadline as a piece. So the Mets rotation, I really like the top two, but the rest, it's going to be shaky. But I think they have enough depth to carry them through the regular season. Their bullpen sucks, but it goes to the point of bringing in or letting Edwin Diaz go. I don't dislike the Devin Williams signing. I would have loved it more if he was a set it man. He's going to be closing games for you. So it's like, can he handle New York? He didn't do it so well last year, but he was better towards the back end of the year to maybe he figured it out. I don't know. Luke Weaver, interesting guy. I have no idea what they're going to get with him. He could be good. He could be terrible. AJ Minter, if he's healthy, is a really good pickup. Now, they brought him in last year, but he like had the oblique injury to where if he's AJ Minter from the left side of the Atlanta Braves version, that's going to be a pretty good top three, but I'm not sure. Brooks Raley, when he's healthy, he's good, but he's always had injury concerns, so I'm not too sure. Like you said, Tobias Meyer, sneaky good pickup by the New York Mets because he can start too if he needs to, and he has electric stuff. And then rounding out their bullpen, Husker Brazenbon, terrible. Luis Garcia, awful. Do they got anyone else listed? Dylan Ross is the kid they brought up the last day of the year, and he didn't pitch, but he has electric stuff to where I don't know how he's going to turn out in the bullpen because you don't know how these bullpen arms are going to translate from AAA. bullpen, as we've talked about on every division preview, is so fickle. You really have no idea. And if they suck, the Mets have the prospect capital to trade at the deadline for a closer. Didn't work last year with Ryan Helsley. Awesome. But they weren't in the market for Johan Duran, and that would have been a freaking problem. And that's pretty much it with the bullpen. So I think their bullpen is probably their weakest part of their team. But like I said, bullpens can change. They can go up or down. Let's get into their lineup. Catcher, Francisco Alvarez. I think when he came back from the minor leagues, he was one of the best hitting catchers in baseball. I think he found something. I despise him with a passion just because he's a Met, just the way he plays, he has such an arrogance about him. But when you're hitting like he did in the second half, that's kind of warranted. And then Luis Torrens is going to be the backup catcher, a really good backup catcher, to where their catching depth is pretty good. Now, first base sucks. Like Jorge Polanco is a good player. I don't think he's worth 20 million, but do we not forget the offseason last year, he was coming off like a sub 700 OPS and he's not going to play Gold Glove defense. Granted, he had a really good year last year. 800 OPS was phenomenal in the playoffs, but replacing that with Pete Alonso, that's where I definitely disagree with David Stearns in his offseason, but overall, I think the offseason was good. Brett Beatty might slide in there at first base too. Mark Vientos, depending on lefty righty, who's going to play DH, because DH is going to be a rotating door. So that's going to be a mix. Second base, Marcus Semien. I think you're just going to get a really good defender at second. The bat has tailed off, and his second half stats showed that to where he had a sub 600 OPS. I don't think he's ready for a bounce back year. I think he's at the tail end of his career. But at worst, you're getting a Gold Glove level second baseman, and that's very valuable in the infield. Third base, oh my goodness. So of course it's going to be Bo Bichette. I just it's so funny with Bo Bichette, like the offseason, because we did our free agency prediction videos, and I said whoever's going to sign Bo Bichette is going to make a massive mistake. But then a report came out that the Phillies were interested in signing him, and then my tune changed on him to where, like, bring him in. He's the missing piece. Obviously, he played this for a lapdog, went to the Mets. Bo Bichette's going to be a good player. Of course, I wanted him. His production comes with the bat, his defensive value. He's not terrible, but he's not good. That's why he had to move off shortstop. I personally would prefer Bo Bichette at second because his arm strength isn't there, but I think he's going to be fine at third base. I don't think he's going to be a dud. And if he stays healthy, which has been problematic in the last few years, the Mets got a really good player. And of course, he's overpaid, but when it comes with the Mets, money doesn't matter, right? So it doesn't really affect them like it would affect another team. And then shortstop, Francisco Lindor. Love me some Francisco Lindor. Of course, he ruined my life in 2024 with the swing of his life. But he plays Gold Glove defense every single year. He always posts, and he's just a consistent player at the shortstop position to where he's still one of the best players in baseball. And rounding out their outfield. So in left field, I think they're going to go with Carson Bench. I think they're going to infuse some youth, and you have to do that if you're building a sustainable dynasty. That's what the Dodgers have been doing. That's what the Phillies are trying to do with Crawford, Miller, Painter. So you have to mix in some of those young guys. Center field. Luis Robert is going to have a phenomenal year with the New York Mets. We've talked about it year after year. Get that man out of Chicago because I get it. He's getting paid a lot of money to where you think he just has to show up and do his job. But the atmosphere in the White Sox clubhouse, when you're losing 100 games over and over again, you're not going to be the player you're capable of being. Because we saw at the trade deadline, the 2 weeks before that, he had like a 900 OPS. He was playing Gold Glove defense in center because he thought he was going somewhere. Now he's in a winning organization, quote unquote, a team that is going to probably definitely make the playoffs. So I think you're going to get the best version of Luis Robert. And at worst, he's still a Gold Glove defensive center fielder. And right field, Juan Soto. Juan Soto is one of the best players in Major League Baseball. No, actually, I think they're switching Soto to left, and then Benj is going to play right, if I remember correctly. I think that's a smart move. Soto has a cannon of an arm, but he doesn't have good range to where left field, especially in Citi Field, is going to be a better spot for him. He's still one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball. And I just think overall with that depth in the lineup, the depth in the rotation, the bullpen shaky, combined with, I'll get into the Phillies, why I think they're going to be a wild card team. I just think the Mets are the clear-cut favorites in the NL East. I think it's going to be close. But Ryan, give me your thoughts on the beloved New York Mets.
I have a completely different take on the Mets, and it really does go back to their pitching. I love McLean, and I love the pickup of Freddie Peralta. But again, it's like you said, behind those guys, it's kind of shaky. You really don't know who's going to come up and step up when they need them to. And that's kind of going to have to be a wait and see type situation. Their offense is going to produce. There's no way that they don't. I do think Bo's going to have some growing pains over at third base. I don't think he's going to be like error riddled or anything, but it's definitely going to be a tough task. We've seen him not look great in just IO. So I mean, he hasn't looked phenomenal, but again, he's still figuring it out. He's a major league ball player playing a position at the major league level for the first time in his life, probably. So he'll probably get there and turn things around. But again, the Mets, they're always in that echelon of they're finally going to break through and they're finally going to reach the potential that they always do. And then what do? They met.
But yep.
And it's like I don't know what else to say about the Mets. Maybe I could start looking at them in the sense of like the Guardians because I always sleep on the Guardians. Maybe it's time for me to stop sleeping on the Mets, and maybe you are right; they are the clear cut number one. I don't see it. I had Atlanta, a healthy Atlanta, winning the NL East this year, but they're already getting bit by the injury bug. We'll get to that when we can start to talk about the Braves, but I don't know. I'm not as high on I don't think you're high on the Mets, but I'm not as high on the Mets as other people are. I'm not necessarily being a realist when it comes to being as excuse me. I'm not necessarily being a realist when it comes to my opinion on the Mets. I'm just going by what I've seen. Every time they're a good team, they don't do anything. They lost to the Royals in the World Series in 2015. That kind of goes to show what kind of an organization that they are. They haven't been back since, and they've been kind of sputtering to get back ever since. And I don't think that's this year. I don't think they're a first place team. And if anything, I think they're the one team from that top three in the NL East that misses the playoffs.
Well, that would be awesome because I've said this before. When the Phillies were, it was always Phillies versus Mets. That's the number one rivalry in the NL East. It's not even close. But when the Phillies started making the playoffs, who were they facing? The Atlanta Braves. So that rivalry got amplified to where you were thinking, is it Braves Mets? Like, which one is it? And then the Mets made the playoffs in 2024 and beat us. And then it was a sure gone conclusion of what team I hate the most. It's because the fans are so freaking arrogant. And it's like you said, this is our year. It's like the Cowboys of the NFL, and they all have money, and then it never happens. I just think this year, and let's get into the Phillies, that I have them finishing second. Before I get into their roster, I just think the vibe around the camp has been so weird. Like it's you felt like 25 was the year to win with that core. So you thought there was going to be a lot of change in this offseason. That wasn't the case. We're basically running it back. It's still a very good team, but I think they've been there, done that, especially winning the NL East, winning the bye, to where there's not going to be a sense of urgency to win the NL East. Now, that, in my opinion, that's ludicrous. I think you need to get the bye, confirm that you're in the NLDS. Do not play that wild card round because anything can happen there. It's such a weird feeling around the Phillies to where this is what they would do. They would lose the division, sneak in as a wild card, and get hot. And I would love that. I would prefer the NL East because I want to beat the Mets, but I just think that combined with the improvements that the Mets made, that's why I have the Mets number one, Phillies number two. But let's get into my beloved Phillies. So the rotation has been the strength of their team the last couple of years, but their rotation is very shaky now because, of course, you have Zach Wheeler, but do we know if Zach Wheeler is going to be the Zach Wheeler he was? We don't know. We have to see it, right? We think he's going to be that guy, but we don't know. Christopher Sanchez is a top five pitcher in Major League Baseball. He's the second best lefty. I don't think it's close. You're going to say Crochet. I'm going to say Sanchez. Sanchez is a dog. So him leading a rotation is not bad at all. Luzardo, I think, is going to, in a contract year, it's going to be dominant. But after that, it gets shaky. Aaron Nola. Now, it is 2026, even year Nola, pitching for Team Italy, which makes no sense in the world. But I think he's not going to be the Aaron Nola of 24 or 22, like 3.5. I think with Nola, what you're banking on is an innings eater, a 4 ERA, maybe 4.25. I would take that for sure. We just can't have Aaron Nola be who he was last year because if he's that with our starting pitching depth, we are freaking screwed. So, but I think he'll bounce back. But still, then you got Andrew Painter, the prospect that we held on to, the prospect we didn't trade for Garrett Crochet. So now it's time to put your money where your mouth is, Dave, to where is this prospect going to be everything we thought he's going to be? And I think he eventually can get there. I don't think it's going to be in 2026. I think he's going to have some growing pains. But if Andrew Painter logs about 150 innings for you, and has a 4 ERA, I think that's successful. Phillies fans won't agree because they've been told this is the next coming. But even the next comings, it takes a few years to adjust to Major League Baseball to where, yeah.
I'm really glad that you said that because a
Mhm.
lot of these prospects come up and they have the expectations of being Mike Trout, the expectations of being Clayton Kershaw, Steven Strasburg. They have the expectations of just reaching what these generational athletes can get to. And not everybody's as generational as these guys. Some guys, it takes a while for them to get it. I mean, look at Jerickson Profar. Sure, he tested positive for PEDs, but he was a top prospect that didn't pan out. And then he became really, really good. Was it all PEDs? Who knows? We'll see when he comes back.
Yeah.
But I guess it goes to show that it happens in every sport, basketball, football, and especially in baseball. You put all these highly touted top prospects on such a pedestal, and then when they struggle, they're not good anymore. Because I remember when Roman struggled, he came up and he went like 1 for 15 to start his major league career or something like that. Not a good look. And Yankee fans, everybody's like, "Oh, Roman, look at your top prospect. This is what you guys were waiting for." And then he finished with a 286 and 19 homers. He didn't even play he didn't even play more than half the year.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you have to be patient with these prospects. And I think Painter's going to be good, but
Yeah.
again, you're right. You have to be patient with guys like that.
Yeah, and Cole Hamels in '06 when he was because Cole Hamels was the last great Phillies pitching prospect. If you want to say Sixto Sanchez, whatever. He never came
I'll
close to
allow it.
Sixto Sanchez, there was the hype around him, but he was so far away from the majors. I'm not going to compare it to Painter because then he eventually got traded. But Cole Hamels, I would say, was the last big Phillies pitching prospect that came up. He had a 4.01 ERA in 2006, and then we saw what he turned into. And another interesting point, I think Bryce Harper is putting too much pressure on Andrew Painter. I think he's just frustrated with Dave and how the organization is going to where he wants to win now. He wants to make all the win now moves because he is 33 years old. He's getting into the tail, not the tail end of his career, but kind of, to
I'd
where,
call it the tail end of his prime.
yes, that's a good point to say, good phrase. But I think Bryce, what the organization told him is like, we got to see how these young guys are producing. Like, we got to give them a chance. And now Bryce is saying, okay, cool, but that guy needs to be a star now. Like he said on numerous occasions, Andrew Painter needs to be a guy for us. If Andrew Painter has a 4 ERA, that's completely fine. But besides Andrew Painter, we have Taiwan Walker. Taiwan Walker, interesting fellow. Um, I like him as a human being because he always took it on the chest. The only time I disliked Taiwan Walker, well, not the only time, the media time I didn't like him is when he criticized Rob Thompson for like not pitching him in the playoffs, which was completely justified on Topper's end. And then 24 was quite literally a nightmare out of hell. Every fifth day, I needed a handle of vodka to get through a Taiwan Walker start. But he did bounce back in 25 in the sense of he was a guy that went from the rotation to the bullpen back to the rotation. Like he was going back and forth. And he did a pretty good job to where I don't know what you would get with Taiwan Walker because he's going to be the fifth starter up until Wheeler comes back. And then they got to make that decision because the only way Painter's going to leave the rotation if he's struggling, he's going to go to AAA. To where I think the Phillies need to add some starting pitching depth. Dave said they were going to add some starting pitching depth. Still hasn't happened. Lucas Giolito's still out there, but I don't think he fits the mold because he wants to be guaranteed a start in the rotation for the entire year, and we simply can't give them that. So the rotation, if healthy, is still very strong, but it's very questionable to where that's why I also believe they will be second in the NL East. I hope I'm wrong. And then let's get into their bullpen, which I think is the clear-cut strength of this team. This bullpen is going to be a problem, not just on the major league side. We have so much depth in the minor leagues for the bullpen. The bullpen's going to be electric. Johan Duran, animal. Jose Alvarado, big question mark, but if he can get to 2022, 2023 form, this is the best bullpen in baseball. Orion Kerkering, I like Orion Kerkering. I feel bad for him. I think he's going to have a bounce back year, but you really don't know because something as traumatic as that can quite literally end someone's professional career. And we're just going to have to see what happens with him. I think he's going to bounce back. Brad Keller, one of the sneaky moves of the offseason, just pitched today, scoreless inning, is going to be pitching for Team USA. If he's Brad Keller of last year with the Cubs, my God. And this bullpen will be so much better in the playoffs because in 24, they shit the bed. 25, they weren't bad because they had a sub-4 ERA, but they were bad in spots that mattered. Matt Strom, who was traded, gave up the home run to Teoscar Hernandez. For as much as we love Johan Duran, he did walk in Mookie Betts. As much as we don't really love Orion Kerkering, I do. No one else in Philadelphia does. he was the reason, not the reason, he was a big reason why we lost that game. And it had nothing to do with pitching, it was just the mental lapse. Um, but I just think this bullpen is set up for the postseason much better than they have in years past. Tanner Banks, interesting guy because he had a really good 2025 season, but his stuff sucks, but he knows how to place it to where he can either have the same year he had last year or he can have an 8 ERA and he can be designated for assignment by May. I have no idea what it's going to be with Tanner Banks. Jonathan Bolin is definitely going to make the roster because he's out of options, and he was the player we picked up in the Matt Strom trade. I think he can be a multi-inning reliever guy. He's at the back end of your bullpen. Kyle Bacchus from the Diamondbacks has looked really good in spring training with that weird windup to where I'm very excited. If he could be your third lefty, awesome. And then rounding out with the depth, Zach McCamby, who I think will get the final spot in the bullpen. He's a stud. He was picked up in the Rule 5 draft by the Marlins, and the Marlins, what they're known for is pitching and their pitching development to where they couldn't protect everyone in the Rule 5 draft. They had to make a decision to put him on the roster. The 40-man, they didn't. So I think he's going to make the roster. Zach Pop is interesting because he has good stuff, but he's never been able to put it together except for one season in 22 with the Blue Jays. But that just shows that this bullpen, the depth is there. And if the top end talent, Duran, Alvarado, Keller, pitch like they can, this is going to be the best bullpen in baseball.
You think Gage Wood makes the opening day roster?
No, he's not even close because what they're going to do is they're going to stretch him out as a starter because they drafted him, Dave said, as a starter. And he already spoke to this in the interview at spring training. Gage Wood last year pitched only like 40 innings because he was injured to start the year. So he's already going to be on an innings limit this year. And if they're stretching him out as a starter, I just don't see any path for him to be on the big league team because if he fails as a starter, he's going to go to the bullpen, but his innings will still be overused to where I don't think you see Gage Wood until the 2027 season. God forbid we don't have that. I think we will, but it might get shaky. So I don't see Gage Wood making an impact on this roster. Then let's get into the lineup, which I think after 1 through 3 is the weak spot in this team. Bryce seems to think so as well. Again, going back to the vibe of this camp being so weird. So like, what's the word? Toxic, but not. It's just like, it's weird. Catcher JT. I've talked about JT so many times, and I don't think it was me being upset that they brought him back. It's what we could have got with Bo Bichette, to where he was more like the consolation prize. He's still going to be a great defensive catcher, but I think that bat is well past his prime to where I don't think he's going to be worth the money. But and again, with catching position in Major League Baseball being so weak, you kind of had to do it after you lost Bo. So I'm not too upset about JT, but I got him batting either 7th or 8th. So whatever. First base, Bryce Harper. I think he's going to use the WBC and just start off the year hot. I think he's going to have a full year. If Bryce Harper stays healthy, which he hasn't done the last 3 to 4 years, he's always had some sort of nagging injury to where he's not able to play 162. And that hurts his counting stats. And his OPS was the lowest of his career since, I believe, 2015 with the Nationals, to where I think he's primed for a bounce back year. I hear all the stuff of not elite using it as motivation. I think he is going to use that. And when Bryce Harper is motivated, he is one of the best players on baseball. But we also got to think like, if he just doesn't have it anymore, because he's been playing Major League Baseball for 15 years, that swing is so violent. Father Time is undefeated. And since he's been playing for so long, it might catch up to him sooner. I don't think that's the time, but I still think Bryce Harper's going to be a very, very good player for the Philadelphia Phillies. Second base, Bryson Stott. You know how much I love Stotty. I think that swing adjustment is real. I think what he brings alone on the defensive side makes him a positive player at second base in the middle infield. I'm very high on Bryson Stott. Trey Turner, I like Trey Turner. I think last year was his best year as a Philadelphia Philly. I don't think he's going to get back to that. But if he can play the same level of defense, hit you 300, 800 OPS, that is worth the contract. My thing with Trey Turner has always been, what are you going to do in the postseason? He can win MVP. If it's NLDS game 1 and it's a big situation, he comes up and he strikes out. What you did in April through September will mean nothing to me. And I think that's the sentiment of this Philadelphia Phillies team. Third base, Alec Bohm. I like Alec Bohm. I just don't like him in the 4 spot, to where if he's your 6th or 7th hitter, I think he's a very valuable major league player. I think he's gonna have a good year. I think he's gonna have a typical Bohmer year. 750 OPS, batch at 270, 280, play good enough defense. Maybe he gets a little bit of uptick in production in his contract year. Maybe he's motivated. I don't know. I think Alec Bohm is just gonna be Alec Bohm, which is a fine major league player. The outfield is the huge question mark. Left field, I think, is the most solidified spot because Brandon Marsh is going to be playing against righties. Otto Kemp is going to be playing against lefties. Brandon Marsh in left field is a gold glove defensive left fielder. When you put him in center, it's a freaking nightmare. He's not going to have to do that this year. And I'm so glad that they finally decided after 4 years that Brandon Marsh cannot play against lefties ever. I think Otto Kemp is going to mash against lefties. I think he plays a good enough left field to where left field is going to be one of the most productive positions for the Philadelphia Phillies. Going into center field, Justin Crawford. And again, with Andrew Painter, I think the expectations have to be very low on Justin Crawford, to where if he struggles, do not have the pitchforks ready. I know how we are as Philadelphia Phillies fans, but it is not his job to be leading a championship team. That's Harper, that's Trey, that's Schwarber. To where if he plays good enough defense in center, and we've talked about that, to where I think he's more of a defensive left fielder than center field, but he's played a very good spring training so far. Granted, it's only been 3 games, but I've been watching the reads he's been getting on baseballs, and they look like legit. To where if he can play good enough defense in center, I think him with his bat to ball skills, batting 9 for you, is going to be very productive for this team. Right field, Adolis Garcia. I have no idea, dude. You're replacing Nick Castellanos with Adolis Garcia, to where on the floor, the defense is going to be much, much, much better. Now, can he get to Texas 2023 for him? Probably not, but can he be somewhere in the middle? Can he pop you 20 home runs? Can he have a 720, 730 OPS, be a positive player? It's a 1-year, $10 million deal. That's what they signed him for. DH is going to be Kyle Schwarber. We know Kyle Schwarber is one of the best hitters in Major League Baseball. I think that's going to continue with age, similar with Big Poppy, your beloved DH. I think he's going to age very well. I just think the Phillies are go. Oh yeah, Poppy. I just think with the whole vibe and everything, the division's not going to be as important to them. They're just focused on getting healthy, developing the young guys, and just getting into the dance. Give me your thoughts on my beloved Philadelphia Phillies.
I think this is the like every year I hear this is the make or break year. This is genuinely the make or break year for the Philadelphia Phillies. And it's
Yeah.
unfortunate that you think that they're going to be a wild card squad. I mean, I'm kind of in the same boat as you. I think they're going to make a wild card. However, this has to be the year that they come motivated. And I think that's kind of you say the vibe is kind of toxic in camp, which I kind of agree with, but I also think it's a weird way for Bryce to almost get under people's skin to be like, all right, I'll show you I can actually do this. And then it's a motivating factor to get these young guys up to a point to where they can be like those big stars and can be those producers. Guys like Andrew Painter, guys like Justin Crawford, guys like Aiden Miller when he eventually gets his chance at some point this season. I assume he'll be up at some point.
Oh,
Um,
he'll make the rotation. He'll be on the opening day roster.
yeah. So and then even with that, the Phillies, I I don't know what to expect in terms of their pitching because I like Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler is a top 10 pitcher in all of baseball now. Christopher Sanchez is the third best lefty in all of baseball. You're right. I do think Crochet is just that much better. Um, it's really just going to come down to how the team can be led when you're kind of going through what a lot of people are thinking could be a tyrannical leadership thing with your general manager. Because nothing's really happened in the sense of off-season moves. You got JT back, whoop-de-doo. There's no real big moves outside of Brad Keller. If you want to call that a massive signing, that's fine. I like Brad Keller. But you've said it a couple of times, and the reason why I think that this is the make or break year for the Phillies is because either Dombo is gone or either Bryce is gone after this season. And I think the Phillies are going to choose Bryce if it comes
Yeah.
down to it. But again, at the end of the day, Bryce could get frustrated mid-season. You're not going to fire your general manager mid-season. The Orioles did that and it went horrible. You're going to trade the player. And I don't want to see Bryce get moved in the middle of a last chance Philadelphia Phillies pennant race. So I think that the Phillies are going to underachieve to a degree, but then when they get to October, that's going to be the time when they have to really just snap into it. Trey's going to have to be the WBC Trey Turner. Bryce Harper's going to have to be MVP Bryce Harper. Adelise is going to have to be 23 Rangers Adelise. And this truly, truly is the last chance for the Philadelphia Phillies to win a World Series with this main core that they have. I don't think that this is going to be they're going to be a competitive team, but they're not going to be a World Series contender after this season unless they get it done this year, in my opinion.
Well, the thing for me always is as long as you get in, right? And I think the Phillies organization is going into the mindset that they don't want to deplete the farm system. They've shown that at trade deadlines to prevent what happened in 2012 to 2019, where they missed the playoffs for 10 straight seasons. And it's so funny about the motivation stuff because it's like you couldn't find a more motivated team than the 2024 Phillies after what happened to the Arizona Diamondbacks. And they showed that in April and May when they were like 40-18, but the wheels fell off. Same thing in 2025. They were motivated as hell. They had great clubhouse with Bader, with Schwarber, Harper. Everyone was clicking, and then you just ran into a buzzsaw. And I just think motivation is so overhyped because you can be as motivated as you want. You can love the players in your clubhouse as much as you want. It comes down to what you do on the field, to where I think it almost benefits the Phillies in the sense to where they can have a shitty year with the clubhouse. Dave can be John at Bryce. Bryce can be John at Dave. Trey Turner can, for some reason, get into a fight with Alec Bohm. I don't think that's going to happen, but like if that were to happen, and then you get on the field game one of the NLDS, if you just want a wild card thing, everything that happened there stays in there, whatever happens on the field. So I have no idea what's going to happen. I'm very excited. This is probably going to be my most favorite watch of the Philadelphia Phillies. Of course, what they do on the field is going to determine that. But just in the sense of where my mindset is going in, you've already hurt me so much to where just give me everything you got. Like I'm just going to enjoy the ride. So that's the Philadelphia Phillies. And let's get into, let me just type it in real quick. Braves depth chart. Because I got them third, but you got them winning the NL East.
I do, but again, it all comes down to their health, and we've seen it already. They had a couple of their pitchers already get the injury bug. I don't remember exactly who it was. I think it was that Schwellenbacher guy again.
Schwellenbach got put on the 60-day IL, and some other guy did as well. AJ
It wasn't
Smith-Shawver.
the other Smith Schweister. Is that his name?
Yeah, well, I think you're talking about another guy, but Smith-Shawver got hurt last year to where he's not going to be pitching. So, like you said, the injury bug is already starting. Ha-Seong Kim broke his wrist in career ice skating. How true is it that ice skating caused the injury? Who knows? But nevertheless, he's not going to be playing up until May or June. But they did just extend Chris Sale, and I think that's a very good move because if Chris Sale is healthy, he's still one of the best pitchers in Major League Baseball. I do like Spencer Strider coming back from the first full year. He didn't get Tommy John, but he got that eternal brace to where in my head, that's kind of the same thing. And we know it takes a full year of being on the mound again, not just recovery, to get back to your form. So I think Strider's going to be very good. Ronaldo Lopez is a wild card because he had that really good 2024. Last year, he had the injury-riddled season. He was a reliever that went to the rotation, and we saw what that kind of does to you. Like, some arms just can't handle that. So we'll see what happens with him. Bryce Elder sucks. I like to thank him for what he did to the Phillies, giving us that moment where Harper hit that ball to the moon. That was fantastic. Grant Holmes, sneaky good pitcher. Like, if he's your 4 or 5, I like Grant Holmes. Joey Wentz, Martin Perez. Good little signing, Martin Perez. I think he's like 4 or 5 years past who he is, but like just as a depth piece, not bad.
Red Sox legend Martin Perez, as well as Chris Sale, too. They're really just building a Red Sox rotation.
Oh, yeah. So their rotation, I just think if they don't have any more injuries, because I think Schwellenbach's not going to return. I think that's going
Which
towards
sucks. I like that kid.
He's a dog. Like, he was a former, like, I believe shortstop. He was a two-way player in college. And those players, like Nolan McClain, same thing. They just got something different about them on the mound. They bring that position player energy. And yeah, I wish he was still pitching with the Braves. I wish he wasn't injured. Because as much as I hate the Atlanta Braves, I don't want to see any injuries.
I was going to say, I'm pretty sure that Bryce Eldridge kid over in San Francisco was also a two-way guy when he was coming out of college.
I could see that. He has that kind of energy. And then their bullpen. I think their bullpen is going to be the strength of their team because last year it was one of their worst aspects. Raciel Iglesias, they brought back on a 1-year deal. He had a tale of 2 seasons. He was terrible to start, but after June 27th, he had a sub-2 ERA. He could fall off a cliff because he is old, but I think he's going to be very consistent. Now, Bryce Harper destroys Iglesias, and I love that. But against everyone else, he's a really good closer. Robert Suarez, really good pickup. You only had to pay 3 years, 45 for him, and if he's the San Diego version, which I think he will be at least for this year, we'll worry about years 2 and 3 later. I mean, that 8, 9 inning guy like that duo is going to be very effective as long as they stay healthy. Tyler Kinley, underrated. It was funny because they declined his option, which didn't make much sense, but I guess they knew that he didn't have a market and they just brought him back. Dylan Lee can be good, but can be terrible to where he's a reliever. We have no idea. But if he's good, they got a really good number 4. Aaron Bummer, he has that crazy windup. He has electric stuff, but he's so ficky. Yeah.
He's also I think he's on the IL as well.
Ah, well, that sucks. But if he gets back and pitches, and he could be a problem. And that's pretty much it with their bullpen that I know of. So I think their top 4 is going to be good. And again, with bullpens, we have no idea. Their catching position, they have the best start or catching depth in Major League Baseball. Drake Baldwin, I think, is going to be a superstar, not just a star, a superstar. I think he's built for the moment. His bat to ball skills mixed in with his power that I think he'll grow into. The Braves know how to draft. Sean Murphy, if he stays healthy, he's still one of the best hitting catchers in Major League Baseball. He's getting up there with age, and his contract is not that expensive. He's making $15 million a year. And what that's going to do, Baldwin and Murphy splitting time, it's going to take the workload off of Baldwin to where he can focus more on hitting when he's DHing, to where I think that their catching position is the best in Major League Baseball. And they also signed Jonah Heim to a minor league deal. So, well, he sucks, but on a minor league deal, not bad at all. First base, Matt Olson. Matt Olson's a great player. If you were going to replace Freddie Freeman with anyone, Matt Olson is not a bad consolation prize. I still think letting Freddie Freeman go is the worst decision the Atlanta Braves have ever done. Their clubhouse changed, and then letting Dansby go, their clubhouse changed, and we saw what happened. But Matt Olson's a damn good player. Ozzy Albies at second base. He's had 2 really bad years from the offensive side. He plays good enough defense. He is on a very, very team-friendly contract still, to where his production is still exceeding that contract. But if he gets back to 2023 Ozzy Albies for him, and that's a lot of the trend with the Braves, can they get back to that stellar season where they broke records? The Braves are going to be in for a really good season. Third base, Austin Riley. He grew out a beard, grew out his hair, and I think that's going to be a freaking problem. Like, he just looks mean, mad, Southern. Like, he's like so sick and tired of the last few years of the Braves, like either getting to the wild card, getting beat, and then not making the playoffs at all, to where I think he's in for a monster year. You can book him starting at third base for the National League All-Star team. Shortstop's going to be a problem because Hassan Kim is injured. And again, even if he was healthy, giving him $20 million, I get it's a 1-year deal. I think that's crazy, but they did sign Jorge Mateo to kind of fill in for that spot. They also traded for Marcio Dubon, and they traded Nick Allen for him, so you traded nothing to get something. So I think their shortstop, they're just going to focus on defensive shortstop. That's what they've done every year since Dansby Swanson went to the Cubs. Orlando Arcia, our beloved Orlando Arcia, he couldn't hit a lick, but
Attaboy.
attaboy, but he was very good defensively. And then the outfield is going to be interesting because I think Jurickson Profar is going to be the left fielder, but they got Mike Yastrzemski as well on a 2-year deal. Interesting. He could really pop off and exceed his contract. And I think they're just going to do a whole rotation with Acuna DH, Yastrzemski, Profar, but then the catching duo. So DH is going to be a revolving door. But I like that kind of depth. Michael Harris, if he hits like he did in the second half, he's going to be a National League All-Star because what he brings on the defensive side is incredible. But his season was a tale of 2 halves, to where if he can build off that second half, he's going to be a very productive player. Ronald Acuna Jr. might win the MVP. If he can just stay healthy, the talent he has is unseen. And it's so tragic that he had 2 ACL injuries because, like I said, what he did in that 2023 season might have been the best baseball season any player has ever played, and that's not hyperbole. Didn't do much in the playoffs. Thank you, Ranger Suarez. But man, I think the Braves, like in my original video, I had them making the wild card, right? I think the Mets, Phillies, and Braves are all going to make the team. But with Schwellenbach going down and that injury bug kind of starting this early, I'm nervous. But like I said, if the Braves stay healthy, if some of their players return to the 2023 form, they could be a problem in the National League East.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. It really just like the key word in all of this is health. If they can keep the injury bug away, they're the best team in the National League East, in my opinion. Matt Olson being the replacement for Freddie Freeman was the best thing they could have gotten. He's basically Freddie Freeman if Freddie focused on the home runs more than the average.
Yeah,
I think they're both fantastic gloves at first base. They both have fantastic swings. Matt's just got a bit more pop than Freddie does.
I'm gonna blow my nose
Ozzy
real quick.
Gotcha. Ozzy Albies is one of those guys that you always hope for to have a good year. I like Ozzy Albies personally. I love switch hit bats, especially middle infield switch hit bats. You don't really see him too often. You don't really see him be good too often. And Ozzy's had that starting role there for a really, really long time. So I think he needs to have a bounce back year because with as friendly as a contract as he has, I really think he could be out there for trade pieces. I've talked about it before on the channel where I think Ozzy really could be moved. Now, I don't know if he has like a no trade clause in that contract or whatever, but I mean, either way, I think he could be a good move if they were to try to upgrade the shortstop position. God forbid Hassan Kim stays injured forever. I like Jorge Mateo, but he's not going to be anything fantastic offensively, and the same thing with Dubon. Austin Riley's going to have a fantastic year, as well as Ronald Acuna and Michael Harris. But the big thing for those three is their health. If they can stay healthy, then the Braves will have no problem dominating the NL East, in my opinion. I think Spencer Strider could have a Cy Young caliber season. I think Ronald Acuna and Austin Riley could get MVP votes. Drake Baldwin could start turning into an MVP caliber player. He could be in the top 15 by the time this season's done when we're talking about MVP votes. But yeah, it sucks because the Braves could play absolutely perfect baseball. They could be literally the most fundamentally sound team, but talent means a lot. And if your talent does go down and you have to rely on, I don't want to call them subpar talent, but the guys that you were waiting for later on down the line, whether they were prospects or whatever, or just plug and play scab guys, then you're not going to win anything. And that's what happened last year. And God forbid it doesn't happen this year because they're going to come back with a vengeance and win the division.
We'll see. I mean, the NL East, like I said, I think the American League East is the best division in baseball. I don't think it's close, but I think the National League East is a very close second. And let's get into the fourth best team, in my opinion, the Miami Marlins. And I don't think they're going to be any slouch. I don't have them making the playoffs, obviously, but I could see them winning 83, 84 games. And their
Yeah.
rotation lines up Sandy Alcantara to where if he stays, or he stayed healthy last year, but he was coming off TJ. Again, the theme, the first year back from TJ is not good. But if he returns to 2023 Sandy Alcantara, he's going to be a problem. Yuri Perez, who the hell knows, dude? He's so up and down. He has all the stuff in the world, but I don't think he's going to put it together. Max Meyer, I like. I think his stuff is pretty good. Braxton Garrett sucks, but he does eat innings for you. Chris Paddock, okay,
I
awesome.
used to be so high on Chris Paddock when he was in the Padres organization. Oh my God, I thought that kid was going to be the next best fireball and righty.
He had the look. He just did not have the stuff. And it's so funny because I saw the tweet. His best season ERA wise was in 2019 when they had the juice balls. Crazy work.
Yeah, wait, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, it just shows how crazy baseball is. But if he's like your fifth or sixth starter, like that's not bad. That's
That's
not bad.
solid.
Yeah. So where their rotation, I just don't think they have enough high end talent for them to compete in a sense of making the playoffs. But I think they're going to be good enough to be in the race the entire year. And they were still technically in the playoff race up until the last weekend of baseball. Now, I think they had to win all their games. The Reds had to lose all their games, all that kind of stuff. The Brewers still didn't happen, but it's still pretty cool. The Marlins were playing meaningful games in late September, and I think they're going to continue that trend. Their bullpen, they did get Fairbanks. That's funny because he got him from the Rays. I think he's a really good closer. 1 year, I think it was $11 million, so that's pretty good. Phillies legend Tyler Phillips, who, what a guy. Like, he just turned into an absolute psychopath, and he always had that tendency in the Phillies. But then they moved him to the bullpen, and the stuff ticked up because he was a starter for us, to where he was closing out games for the Marlins last year, to where I think he's found his confidence in Major League Baseball, to where if he's a set-it man for Pete, I think that's a really good eighth and ninth inning guy. Then to round out their bullpen, they got Calvin Foucher, Anthony Bender, John King, Cade Gibson, Lake Bakar, Michael Peterson, too many freaking names. I'm so sick of when they do this on the depth chart where they have 15, 16, 17 relievers. There's only so many spots. Please do not list them. So I'm
I
not
will
going to.
say I will say, though, Anthony Bender could be a name that could be talked about around trade deadline
Yeah.
time because I actually I know that name, and I actually really like his stuff that he brings.
Yeah. So like I said, bullpen, we'll see. I like their eighth and ninth inning guy. The other players will just fill out where they can. Catcher, they have listed Augustine Ramirez. I think he's more of a DH. Like he doesn't play the defensive catcher position well. They got him in the Jazz Chisholm trade, and he has a really good bat. He hits the ball hard as hell. To where if he's your DH, I think that's more valuable. And they got Liam Hicks and Joe Mack filling out the catching spot. First base, they have Christopher Morel listed. Love me some Christopher Morel. I just don't think he's ever going to be a quality major league hitter. I think he swings out of his shoes. I don't think he has an approach to where that's why the Cubs moved off of him, moved him to the Rays, and then the Rays moved him to the Marlins. Has all the talent in the world, just can't seem to lock it in. Maybe he has a bounce back year, and it's on a really good team to have that bounce back year because he's probably going to get a lot of playing time. Second base, Xavier Edwards, really good player. He's just more like he just is going to bat you 300. He's going to put the ball in play. His OPS isn't going to be high, but if he's playing good enough defense at second and he's just getting hits for you, that is very valuable on a major league team. Despite what my people think about the three true outcomes, you need contact hitters. That's why I'm so excited about Justin Crawford. You need a balance in the lineup. And then who they got a shortstop? They got Otto Lopez. Whatever.
Eh.
Um, Third base, Connor Norby. I like his game. I think he's going to be always a slightly below average player. Not bad, not great. And that's kind of the theme of this Marlins team. There's not like a black hole at any position. But the outfield, I do think is going to be actually really good because they made the trade for Kyle Stowers. I think that's a huge, huge addition because I think him going from Chicago to Miami, Chicago was obviously trying to win a World Series. They still are. Miami's not. So he can kind of get his feet wet, play 162, no pressure, just be who Kyle Stowers is.
Was Kyle Stowers from the O's? Are you thinking of Kiesi that they just got from the Edward Cabrera trade? Because I think
Oh,
Cabrera's from
yeah.
Chicago.
I mixed Owen Casey and Kyle Stowers. So Owen Casey is the guy from Chicago. Same thing is true for him in the sense of going to a smaller market team. But Kyle Stowers, yes, the guy from Baltimore. Did they trade it for Trevor Rogers?
I want to say yes. I think that so honestly, when you think about it, that's a win-win for both sides there.
Yes. Because Trevor Rogers, for some reason, turned into God on the mound.
Dude, he was so unbelievable.
I saw this one TikTok edit, and it was like, you know, the song In My Hands by Hemorrhage?
Yes.
My God, did that fire me up? And I don't care about Baltimore. I don't care about Miami. I was just like, that's what Major League Baseball is all about. So you said win-win trade. And I think Kyle Stowers is just going to build off his year he had last year. The Marlins need to extend him. Absolutely need to extend him. So him and Casey patrolling right field and left field for Miami, if they start to win 83 games, win 84 games, then start spending. And I really like where their player development is going. They got the guys from the Rays to where they're putting so much money into the player development, the facilities and all that kind of stuff, to where in 3 to 4 years, the Miami Marlins can turn into the Tampa Bay Rays, and they're in Miami. If you build it, they will come. If you have a good team, you're going to fill out the stadium, get some more money. I know the Miami Marlins owner is probably cheap as hell, always has been. That's why we're in this whole salary cap discussion. But I do think the Marlins outfield is going to be pretty good. They got Jacob Marcy listed as center field. They also picked up Esteury Ruiz from the Dodgers. He's never going to be anything, but he could be a defensive inning replacement. And then designated hitter is going to be a mix of Augustine Ramirez, Liam Hicks, and then that one other guy I said. So I just think the Marlins have a okay team. Not going to make the playoffs, but I think they're building something in Miami.
Yeah, honestly, I don't feel as strongly as you do about like kind of like how you feel about the A's when they're gonna start dominating in a couple years when they get to Las Vegas. I think we could be in line for a Miami Las Vegas World Series in a couple of years, but again, the all that talent's really got to work out for Miami. I think Stowers can build off of that year and be your consistent guy that you build around. I don't know exactly what their farm system looks like anymore after they called up Yuri and traded Cabrera and everything like that. So I knew they had a pitching farm, a pitching factory down there for a while. But again, I'm kind of ignorant outside of the most recent draft pick. Who I did was that the Arquette kid or did he go somewhere else?
I'm not sure, to be honest, but I know they're really putting their money in the facility of the player development to where you'll see in the drafts of like this year, next year, they're going to be able to pick out some players that really are under the radar, similar to what the Rays do.
Yeah, and the thing is with Miami, it's like I feel like they're always one of those teams that just comes out of nowhere and surprises you one year, and then they go back to being really bad. Because they were that team, I think, either the year before, the year after, or even during the COVID year, they were pretty good. Brian Anderson was a very good baseball player, leading the way for a scrappy Marlins team. That was a pretty fun season to be a Marlins fan. And then, unfortunately, they kind of just went away and went back to being obsolete. They're kind of due for one of those seasons where they come in, like you said, they were kind of in the hunt for a little bit, and then everything just kind of fell out of a plane. But it's really, I think they could be the team that sneaks in. I've said a lot about the Pirates, and I've said a lot about like the A's and everything like that. But this team, I don't think it's this year. I think they're going to surprise people with finishing. I like the 83 wins prediction personally,
Yeah.
and I think that's pretty good. I think they're going to finish maybe 5-6 games out of the wild card. They're going to scare some teams, but I don't think they're going to get right there just yet.
And it just depends how bad the National League is because the Reds got in with 83 wins. The Marlins, I believe, won 84 and 23 when they faced the Phillies, to where it just depends where they are in the 5 or 6 seed. Like it could be a year where the 6 seed wins 89 games like the Phillies, or they could win 83. So we have no idea.
Yeah, there could be like a lot of the talent in the National League is very top heavy. So you'll see like 105 wins for the 1 seed and like 101, 100 for the 2 seed. And then the rest of them are filling out with 95 and less. The American League is kind of more spread out where the number 1 team will have like 97, 96. And then the number 5 and number 6 teams will have those like still 88, 87 win seasons. So again, yeah, it's just going to be interesting to see how that plays out with the teams and their talent.
We should do an episode because I saw this on, I think it was Talking John Boy or whatever, where they had the under overs of each team. We should just like get the DraftKings over under, make our predictions, do like rapid fire, and see how many we get right in the sense of under over.
I'm
Because here's
down.
the team where under over is probably going to be like at 60, the Washington Nationals. My God. So before I get into this, they are heading in the right direction. The manager, I like that they're going young, not only on the manager side, but the general manager side. They took someone from Philadelphia who was in there. I believe it was their internal baseball operations, but from everything that they said about this guy, and I don't remember his name, is he's a baseball freaking wizard to where the national fans are saying they're going into a second rebuild. But in a way, they kind of had to, right? Because if it's a whole new organization, a new GM, a new president of baseball operations, and they see what they have, they can't just try to build off the crap that their past regime has started. They need to do their own moves to where, yes, it's going to be probably 5-6 years before the Nationals are competing for World Series, but I think they are on their way, and that is not in 2026. So let's get into a dumpster fire of this team. Miles Michaelis might be their opening day starter.
Hell no.
And I did want the Phillies to sign him as starting pitching depth. Isn't that crazy? Your 6th, 7th starter. He's going to be an opening day pitcher. Now, maybe they give it to Cade Cavalli, who also sucks, but it's just like
I would give it to one of their prospects, honestly, because Sakura's down in the minors and Harlan Susana's also down there. He's got a 70 grade fastball and a 70 grade slider. Call him up, have fun.
she shouldn't. You're not going to waste a year's service time with this
No,
dumpster.
he's not ready, but I mean, have some fun.
Absolutely not. But they do have Jake Irvin. Foster
Oh
Griffin, Brad
boy.
Lord. So my God, their rotation is going to be so bad to where they might win 50 games max.
It really was just Mackenzie Gore, wasn't it?
Dude, this might be the first bullpen that I don't know anyone on.
I think I
I
know one. If Hunter Harvey's still there, I know who that is.
He's not. I do know Mitchell Parker. He's the one
Okay,
guy
I
I
know
know.
Mitchell Parker.
Cole Henry, no idea. Jackson Rutledge, no idea.
I know that
Richard
name.
Richard Lovelady, cool name, don't know him.
I think I no, like I'm getting it mixed up with a different Richard, but I know that name.
Clayton Beater, I've heard the name, but I don't.
That sounds like an old Red Sox pitcher, honestly.
Yeah. Andre Granillo, no idea.
Ooh.
Not even gonna try to pronounce this Japanese guy, but let's just say I don't know who he is. Orlando Rabida, PJ Poland, Griff McGarry picked up
That's a
from.
familiar name, actually.
It is. I think he was picked up from the Phillies in the Rule 5 draft to where he's always had good stuff. His command issues has been his thing. I hope he gets a shot with Washington. And if they don't bring him on the opening day roster or at least on the major league roster for 90 days, he comes back to us. So I'll be monitoring that. But let's just say their bullpen, we can predict this bullpen. It's going to be not going to curse. It's going to be unbelievably terrible. Like, genuinely, it is going to be a long season for Nationals fans. Let's get into their lineup because they have some bright spots. Not really. Catcher Keibert Ruiz sucks. That's why
I
they
used
trade.
to be so high on Keibert. When he got traded there and ended up being there, I was like, ooh, that's their turnaround. That's the guy they need to replace Bryce. I said that.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. He was a Dodgers prospect. And
Yes, he was.
you know how the media hypes up these Dodgers prospects at trade deadline time so they can make that trade to where, yes, he was probably listed their second best prospect at the time. He was in the Trey Turner trade. He was in the Max Scherzer trade to where I really think the media has an in with the Dodgers to where like, so we know these guys aren't going to be good at all. But right now they're in your minor league system. Let's hype them up to where you can get the players and the stars can go to LA. But
Still waiting on Gavin Lux to break out. Still waiting on Dalton Rushings to get his chance.
yeah, and they all suck to where it's like, what is going on in LA? Harry Ford, the one they got from the Mariners, I think that was a really good trade because in the
I
sense
like him.
they traded that lefty reliever who I think is good, but that's what you do when your team sucks. You trade your relievers because they have no value for your team now. They only have value in the trade market. I like Harry Ford. First base, good lord. Andres Charpo, no idea who that is. Uh,
Ooh,
Luis Garcia Jr., I know him.
I know
He's not
him.
good, but I know him. Second base, they also have Garcia listed, and they have Nasim Nunez.
He's a prospect, I think. I think he's actually a shortstop prospect for them.
Okay, probably not good. Third base, Brady House. I like Brady
I
House.
love him. I love Brady House as a prospect, dude. I love that kid. He's a house.
I
Literally.
I just don't think he's going to be good. I think he has too much of a big swing in his game, but maybe he finds it in
You can
Washington.
shorten that though.
Maybe. I mean, I also was big on Carter Kieboom. Like, I was genuinely a
I
huge
like
fan of him.
Carter Kieboom.
Dude, he just looked like he played the part, and then he got to Washington. He's like, I don't really know how to play baseball anymore.
Yeah, so did Blake Swihart, but we saw how that worked out.
Yeah, it's funny how we just cling to these like prospects, and most of the time, the prospects we cling to don't pan out. That's why we're doing a podcast and not in the actual president of baseball operations team.
Yeah, shout out Lars Anderson.
Oh, what a guy! Shout out Scott Kingery, shout out Johan Rojas. Let's get into their shortstop, C.J. Abrams. I like C.J. Abrams. I think he's a good hitter. I think he's more fit for second base because he plays an atrocious shortstop. But he's a good player to where I think the Nationals should trade him as soon as they can, get some value for him
Yeah.
because it's so funny when they got the James Wood, the CJ Abrams, the Mackenzie Gore, they were meant for the new era of Nationals baseball. You already traded Gore, you're going to trade Abrams. Wood, I think you need to extend because he's like so good in the sense you simply can't let him go because you would get an absolute haul for James Wood. You would get the same pack as Juan Soto if you traded James Wood because he has much more years of control than Soto had.
The thing is with James Wood is that you could get like an active MLB player and probably 3 to 4 prospects to go along with that. So you can get somebody for right now, and then you can get somebody like 3, 4 guys that could come up in 2, 3 years that could get you to the World Series.
I just think he's because the reason you're trading these guys like a Juan Soto is because you know you're not going to resign him. One, you should resign him because you have the money to do it. That's what I want them to do with James Wood. But if the owner's just like we're not spending the money on him, the GM really has no choice to where you have to get some sort of value. What they did with the Juan Soto trade. Um, Center field, they got Jacob Young listed. Jacob Young can't hit it all, but he is one of the best defensive center fielders I genuinely have ever seen. He made that catch against the Mets. I think it was in like late September where the Nationals won that game. And I was Mets watching because they were in the midst of their collapse. It was such a sight to see. And he like does a Spider-Man catch up against the wall at Citi Field. He's phenomenal. Right field's going to be Dylan Cruz. I think Dylan Cruz is going to have a breakout year. I think he has gone through his struggles at the major league level in the sense of like he's ready now to like he's over that. Like this is time to go. And he plays a great defensive right field. He is a cannon. He's a big game player to where I'm very high on Dylan Cruz. Rounding out the DH, Dylan Little or Dylan Lyle. Okay, like this team is gonna be so freaking bad.
Yeah, I mean, I'm excited for the 2031 Nationals when
Yeah.
Susana and Sakura and all these other pitching guys, the guy that they got from Boston, Perales, I think his name is, he's got a 70 grade fastball, so he's going to come up and be electric for them. They have the pieces to have five, I don't want to say five Cy Young caliber pitchers, but they have the capabilities to have five all-star caliber pitchers if all these prospects work out how they're supposed to. But in terms of this year, in terms of how the Nationals are going to do, if I'm a Nationals fan, I'd watch a lot of college baseball this year so that you know who's coming out in the draft. I would do a lot of Black Cobra Media on YouTube so you can go watch all the high school games and the tournaments so you know the seniors that are coming out that you can draft and everything. That's how I found out who Seth Hernandez and Billy Carlson were. But like you said, James Wood is a generational talent. James Wood will be the reason that the Nationals climb out of poverty if they re-sign him. And when you have a 1-2 punch like James Wood and the potential that Dylan Cruz has, because I agree with you, I love Dylan Cruz as a player, and I think that he can be one of the best corner outfielders in all of baseball. We just have to see him turn it around, and having a guy like James Wood take that kind of pressure off of you, because yeah, you're a top prospect, but when the guy underneath you kind of like explodes and becomes a star, you can take a breath, reevaluate your game, and go back to the basics, go back to the fundamentals, be the Dylan Cruz that got you drafted. And so you can stop being a 210 hitter and get up to the 260s and 270s where you're supposed to be. I'll be high on the Nationals in the next decade, probably. Probably in like 2035, we'll be having this conversation as old ass men and just like, yeah, you know what? The Nationals look good this year. But
No.
I guess we'll wait
We're going to be
wait and
saying
see.
we're going to be saying the Nationals has just won their third straight World Series. The Nationals are going to be a problem with their new baseball organization people, the new GM, the new president, the new manager. I think it's a long ways away, but there is light at the end of the tunnel, Nationals fans. But that'll do it for this episode of Baseball for Maniacs. NL East was fun. Next one we're going to do is the NL Central. Then it's the NL West. Then we're done, and then essentially it's WBC time because that starts next week. And so excited for that. But like I said, we're pumping out this content. WBC is going to be a lot. The spring training's in full effect. Opening day is almost here. It's been so fun doing with you, Ryan. And then we're just going to go full steam towards the regular season into the playoffs.
Absolutely. Like you said, WBC is coming up. We got some way too early award predictions to talk about. We got some just regular Phillies news, some regular Red Sox news, regular MLB news. So y'all stay tuned because this season's going to be a fun one and hopefully not the last one for a couple of seasons, but things aren't looking too hot. But Owen, I will catch you on the next one.
Later, buddy.